My father was a park ranger. He took me with him on his night shifts. I should have followed his rules. Here's how the human mind works. When you walk through the forest, you don't think much about it. You just let the silence envelop you, feeling the gentle breeze and the crack of twigs beneath your feet. It's part of human nature to crave such scenery, no matter how much we evolve in busy, concrete-filled cities. The forest always welcomes and refreshes us. The air there is clear and fresh, and sunlight plays hide and seek among the tall branches. It's deeply inspiring and beautiful. But sometimes, as you walk along the trail, your mind starts focusing on the little things, sounds, gusts of wind, shadows among the trees. That kind of silence can feel both comforting and unsettling, depending on how you perceive it. The forest is a two-sided coin. It hides you from the draining urban landscape, but introduces you to an entirely different environment. You're no longer in control because this is not your home. You might fool yourself by building a house there, but you don't truly belong in the forest. You are merely a guest. That's what a national park is. An illusion of control, a false sense of freedom you feel as you walk along the marked trails and camp in designated spots, thinking the silence around you is peace. But even that silence is an illusion. Visit the forest again, even when it seems quiet. Is it ever truly quiet? No. Absolute silence means death. Fear it. My father taught me that. He's a park ranger, and he's been doing this job for a long time. I'm not a big fan of national parks, mostly because there's usually no signal there, and the hikes are exhausting. I'd much rather enjoy nature by swimming in a lake or skiing. Why bother breaking your legs just to reach a high point and look at an ordinary valley? Not to mention the animals, they're everywhere, and the bugs always annoy me. I never understood his love for the forest. I guess that's one reason why he started telling me scary stories from his night shifts. Looking back, it's obvious they were made up. But to me as a child, they felt real. I used to think he was so brave to work night shifts. As I grew older, I started liking horror stories. And even though I no longer believed in forest creatures like the ones he described, I still loved the idea of spending a night in a small cabin in the middle of nowhere, just to feel the adrenaline. So, when my father said he wanted to take me with him, I agreed immediately. I knew why he offered. You see, over the past few years, our relationship had soured. I guess I grew up, and he didn't know how to handle it. He became emotionally distant and seemed to withdraw from my attempts to connect with him. In return, I became uninterested and easily irritated. My mom said this would be a fun way for us to bond. We arrived at the park around 9 p.m. His shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. The Jeep pierced through the darkness, illuminating the trees that turned white under the black sky. I had never taken this route before, but then again, my visits to the park were rare. We drove for about an hour and a half to reach a small cabin, which wasn't even deep in the forest. It was the only trace of humanity in the middle of nowhere, a tiny wooden cabin with a flickering bulb and a guard dog. Before we got out of the car, my father stopped me. Listen, there are some rules you need to follow here. I know this might not seem important, but it's very important. Then, he handed me a piece of paper, a handwritten list of rules. At first, it seemed ordinary. Don't go out alone in the park. Don't leave food lying around, etc. I thought the other rules were written just to scare me. Dad, I'm not a kid anymore. You can't scare me with stuff like this. I'm not trying to scare you. You wanted to come with me. So follow these rules. What does this mean? If you see a man with no arms, don't help him. Ciao! There are a lot of strange people out here. And this? If you hear a whistle nearby, it means they're far away? My father smiled, but his eyes didn't. Some of the rules were added by superstitious folks. Just think of them as precautions. It won't happen to you. 1. Don't go out alone in the park. Always carry a functioning communication device. Chad. 2. Don't leave the marked trails unless instructed or properly equipped. Bam. 3. Don't leave food out and lock the trash bins. 4. Always carry a whistle and badge. 5. If you see a man with no arms, don't help him. 6. Your family isn't here. Remember that. There's no reason to hear their voices coming from outside. 7. Lock your car doors, even while driving. 8. Check the markings on the trees. There are 3 types of markings, all in triangle shapes: red, yellow, and green. Any other markings aren't ours. Don't follow them. 9. If a whistle sounds close, it means they're far. If it sounds far, it means they're close. C. 10. Be wary of the dead blue. C. What's the dead blue? I asked. My father sighed. You know when you're in the forest, when you think what you're hearing is silence, but then you realize there are dozens of sounds around you, from birds to crickets to leaves rustling. Ma! Yes. That's because there's no such thing as silence, absolute silence. It never exists. There's always sound, movement, life. Dead blue is total and absolute silence. It's our code for it, a deafening silence, unnatural. Then, if it happens, Ma! It won't happen. But if it does? He fell silent, staring at the steering wheel. Then, his head turned toward me. His eyes flicked from mine to the window behind me. You leave. Then he opened the glove compartment, and everything started to feel like a night I would never forget. As I tell you what happened, remember this one thing: stay out of the forest. Forget everything I said before about recreation and the beauty of nature. It's not worth it. Not at all. I don't want to admit it, but deep down, I know. This is all my fault. My father is gone because of me. No matter what strange creatures roam this park, my father was fine until I showed up. Through me, they knew my father had a weakness, and they exploited it. Now, I might never see him again, and it's all my fault. I know that. I just choose to bury it deep in my chest, letting it sink further into a knot in my stomach that will never go away. As I sat at the guard post, wrapped in a blanket, shivering from stress, Martin approached me. As much as I wanted to ask about this park, its rules, and my father, something inside me hesitated to trust him. Was he really Martin? He sat down next to me. I'm sorry. The night remained cold and unwelcoming. The trees stood tall and grim before us, cloaked by an endless dark sky. No stars, only soulless darkness. Maybe the clouds had rolled in. I kept thinking about how, just 4 hours ago, I was stargazing with my father. What do you mean? I'm sorry about your father. Don't say that. You're saying it like he's already dead. Martin didn't respond, nor did he look at me. I turned my body toward him. He's not dead. He can't be. Martin stayed silent. Without thinking, I hit his arm. He recoiled, frowning. It's not my fault. He shouldn't have brought you here. Tell me everything you know about this stupid park. I have a right to know. You owe me. And it's the only way I can find him. He stared at me for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was a quiet whisper. We thought they were lying. Me, Paul, and the others. When we started working here, we heard the stories, the legends, and we brushed them off as just regular horror tales. We didn't listen, and we didn't believe until we saw it for ourselves. Look, this park is massive. So massive, and no one has ever truly explored it. I thought they were just underfunded, but now I know they were scared. He stopped and looked around. Something inside me wondered if he felt ashamed to tell the story. But then I realized he might be searching for something, or more precisely, something. That's the problem. Even after you come face to face with the supernatural, your brain still tries to find a logical explanation. We started documenting the strange occurrences, trying to find patterns or ways to avoid them. We thought that if we made those rules, we could minimize their interference. He wiped his face. We never expected this to happen. None of us had ever disappeared before. We thought the worst they could do was mess with us or hurt us. He shivered, even though the night was freezing. Paul always refused to believe. He never really saw anything. I sighed. I was too tense to cry, but I wanted to. Why do you keep allowing tourists and campers here? They only care about the lost ones. They search for that in your soul, the desire to get lost. Then they help. A chill ran down my spine without reason. I hugged myself and then sneezed. I need your help to find him. Tomorrow morning. No, Martin. He could be hurt. I looked out into the dark trees. He's out there, alone, right now. Who's out there? A woman's voice came from the cabin. My father. He's missing. The woman frowned, then looked at Martin. Which post? 62, Martin replied. Shit! That's my next shift. I can search for him with you if you want. I'll drive my car there and let you know if I find anything. Martin sighed, stood up, and walked toward his car. I followed him. After finding my dad's ATV parked in front of a large oak tree, We realized he wasn't there. We had to continue on foot, following the rules. No strange markings, no dead blue, no whistles, loved ones, or the man with no arms. But the night took a turn when we encountered an old woman behind a tree. "Have you seen my face?" she asked in a sharp, chilling voice. Everything turned into a nightmare. I wasn't sure if I could still find my dad. But when I heard a whistle far in the distance, I knew they were closer than I thought. Lost time. A deep, gnawing fear, until I finally managed to escape back to the guard post. But when I tried calling my dad again, the voice on the other end was crystal clear. "Kev, get out of the woods now. They'll let me go, but they want you." None of it made sense. I stared at the floor, phone in hand, silent. "What do you mean? Where exactly are you?" "Kev, don't come looking for me." "I can't do that. I can't just leave you out there." I could hear heavy breathing on the other end of the line. "Dad, please tell me where you are. I won't come after you. I promise. I'll stay. Safe. At the guard post. I'll send Martin." His voice trembled. "I don't know where I am. I've never been on this side of the forest before. I think it's east." "Do you see any markings on the trees?" "Yes, but they're not ours. These markings don't belong to us. These markings don't belong to us." I fell silent, and so did he. Holding the phone to my right ear, I suddenly heard someone whistle right next to my left ear, startling me. I gasped deeply. "Stay calm. It means they're still far away." "There's something else," my father said. The cabin felt cold, yet I was sweating, gripped by an inexplicable fever. I could barely hold the phone anymore. "Kev, I'm not alone here. There's something with me. I can't get out either. It feels like I'm walking in circles, back and forth, and I'm afraid to go too far. It's like something's keeping me here. It doesn't want me to leave." I heard the whistle again, this time from my left, but it didn't seem as close as before. "They're getting closer." "All right, I have to go." I wanted to hang up, but my hand wouldn't obey. I just let the phone drop to the floor. In the reflection of the window, I saw myself, pale, dark veins under my eyes, dry lips. What is happening to me? I felt like throwing up. I dropped to my knees and started rocking back and forth, clueless about what to do or how to handle this. I knew it had to be my dad because those things couldn't speak over the phone, but I had no idea where he was. Something inside me told me they wouldn't let him go unless I went after him myself. I didn't know if Martin would help me again, and judging by how quickly he left me here, it didn't seem like he was eager to help much at all. My stomach churned, and my chest felt tight as I vomited on the cabin floor. The next few minutes were a blur. I remembered my hands and knees crawling toward the trapdoor, then tumbling down the stairs, maybe breaking my ankle when I hit the ground. I tried to stand but failed, ending up sprawled on the leaves, staring at the sky. I could just fall asleep here, forever. Another whistle sounded to my left, this time farther away. I didn't have much time before they found me again. "Hey, kid!" Damn it. Already? I lifted myself just enough to see who was approaching. It was the woman from the guard post, the one who said her shift was about to start. I mean, she looked like her. I didn't know if it was really her. I didn't respond. I just stared blankly at her gray leather boots and her ginger ponytail. "Are you okay?" I stood up. She tried to help me, but I yelled at her not to touch me. "Stay away from me. Right now?" A look of confusion swept across her face. "Where did you come from?" "I want to ask you the same thing." "What?" she said, smiling slightly, a bit amused. "My father is missing. Do you find that funny?" She scratched her head. "Who's your father?" "We already talked about this at the checkpoint. With Martin. You should remember." "I know he's missing, but I don't know his name. I don't know everyone around here," she replied, annoyed. After I told her, she shook her head. "Never heard of him." "Why is no one talking about this?" "Your park rangers just go missing, and damn it, I've been here for 2 days now, and you don't seem to care." "What about my mom? Did you talk to her? Did you talk to Martin after he just left me here like that?" Martin didn't come back to the checkpoint," she replied stoically. "After that night, we haven't seen him again." I stared at her in disbelief. "Take me there, if it's really you. I need to talk to other people. I can't be alone here. With you." "I understand your father is missing, but that's not exactly uncommon around here. And please, be polite. Don't let frustration cloud your judgment and make you unnecessarily irritable. Unusual? I snapped. I have every right to be angry. What do you mean? People disappearing is just normal? Martin said no one's ever gone missing here. She frowned, tilting her head, then looked away. I was still feeling sick, but at least I could stand on my own. Another whistle echoed. This time, deeper in the forest, the tall trees surrounded us, and the familiar cabin now looked desolate and decayed. Nothing made sense anymore. What do you mean disappearing is normal? Who else has gone missing? I demanded. She hesitated. Silence filled the space between us, and I could tell she was uncomfortable. I did, she finally said. I didn't let her finish. I ran. I ran for so long that my legs went numb. My shoulders slammed against tree trunks as I struggled not to trip and collapse to the ground. It felt like running was the only thing that could save me. Deeper and deeper into the woods, I began to wonder just how long a person could survive without water or food. At one point, I stopped to sit down. I couldn't take it anymore. My heart was practically screaming at me, warning that if I didn't stop, it would give out. As I sat on the moss, I immediately realized I wasn't alone. I swallowed hard. For the love of God. In front of me, the ginger-haired woman sat cross-legged. Go away, please. Just leave me alone, I said, my voice trembling. I just want to help, she replied softly. I don't believe you, I spat back, glaring at her. I've been gone for a long time. I don't remember what I was doing, maybe patrolling. Anyway, Post 62 is notorious for interesting things happening. 62, 24, 46, they're not haunted, generally speaking, but energy points. And them, as far as I know, they come from the earth. They're corpses. Forests used to be humanity's cemeteries and places of ritual. I don't know what went on here, but these woods have swallowed so much blood. This blood, this death. The more it gathers, it creates its own gravity and asks for more. More blood, more death. She spoke softly, as if telling a bedtime story. I saw those markings, and even if I didn't recognize them, I was too ashamed to ask. I thought they were part of my training, and not knowing them would make me look bad. Back then, nothing was written down, she said with a sigh. Anyway, I came to this clearing in the woods and, well, I don't remember how I died. All I know is that I was following my mother's voice. Now I don't even remember how her voice sounds. How long have you been here? I asked. She ignored my question. You're still alive. You could leave. I just wanted to, well, let you know that it's not so bad here. She smiled, but her eyes didn't follow. There's always something to do here. They're always looking for someone new. I shook my head, while she nodded. All right, you're looking for your father. I think you already know what you need to do. Look behind you. I turned around. Behind me, a faintly glowing blue triangle shimmered in the air, almost ethereal. When I turned back to her, she was gone. I kept walking and walking, each step squelching through damp earth and soggy leaves. This forest, it didn't feel like an ordinary forest. It wasn't alive in the usual way, teeming with small life everywhere, but instead felt like one enormous, singular entity. The ground beneath my feet rose and fell ever so slightly, as if mocking the rhythm of my breath. I crossed a bridge, then passed through a tunnel carved into a mountain that seemed cursed. Emerging on the other side, whispers and whistles greeted me. How are you? Fine, just a little hungry. All right. Wait, not much longer, I think. I think so. Do you believe it? Yes, not much longer. Just wait a little longer. Just wait a little longer. Just wait a little longer. A little longer. What was going to happen a little longer from now? I tried calling out for my father, but my voice was answered by another, a voice that wasn't his. I chose to stay silent. I walked through a garden of thorny roses, their jagged vines clutching at my clothes, trying to wound me. Roses, the most beautiful flowers beloved by everyone, yet they never missed a chance to draw blood. In the distance, there were more trees. One of them looked broken. As I got closer, I realized something was hanging there, or rather, someone. I didn't recognize their face. I kept walking and saw more of them. Bodies hanging from the trees, their bare feet swaying above my head, watching me. I stopped looking at their faces, afraid I might see my father's. Eventually, I reached a hill and caught the scent of something burning. As I approached, I saw the flames, and then Martin! The moment I called out his name, a sharp pain struck my shoulder. My back slammed into a tree. I smelled metal. Leave, Martin said in a cold tone. No, it's me. Please believe me. I can't do this anymore. I've seen you 5 times already. I don't believe it anymore. No, I'm telling you the truth. A small knife flew toward me, but I managed to dodge it. I started crying and dropped to my knees. I told him about the red-haired woman, my father, the stars, and my life, things no imposter could ever know. They could try to take my life, but they knew nothing about it. Martin's expression softened. He sighed. I've seen more than 12 sunsets here. I had to kill them to survive. The mimics. I ate their flesh. They mimicked my family, the people I loved, even you. I've killed my family countless times here, over and over. We talked for quite a while. He said he didn't want to go any further because he saw an open field and felt bad about it, and I understood. At one point, he cut the conversation short. Do you hear that fire sound? I didn't hear anything. No rustling leaves, no wind, no fire sound. Dead blue. Run. I ran, with Martin behind me. We ran until the moonlight shone freely, unburdened by the trees. We reached an open field. I stopped, gasping for air. My father was lying there, unconscious. I dropped to the ground and shook his shoulders. My voice was hoarse, my eyes stinging with tears. Get up, Dad. Please, get up, now. He didn't respond. Suddenly, Martin screamed in pain. I turned and saw something, like a shadow, standing over him. I didn't know what it was. Choose. I froze. Someone whispered directly into my left ear. Choose, one or the other. Martin screamed. My father was silent. I understood in that moment. Dad, I choose him. Let him live. Martin's scream stopped, and my father began coughing behind me. I turned around and hugged him tightly. He was confused and dizzy. Meanwhile, Martin lay on the cold ground, his eyes wide open, his skin turning blue. A wave of guilt flooded over me, but I didn't have time to process it, as a bright light shone down on us. A helicopter. I grabbed the ladder without thinking, helping my father climb up. The last thing I saw before I climbed aboard was the red-haired woman, sitting cross-legged on the grass beside Martin's body. We were taken back to the park entrance. The next few hours were filled with questions about the park, about our disappearance, about Martin's death. Now, we were the prime suspects, but I was just grateful I made it out. I knew it was because of his sacrifice. Still, I desperately wanted to talk to him again. I couldn't rest knowing his innocent soul was trapped there. There's one other thing. I don't dare admit it. Sometimes, when I look at my father, even weeks after that incident, I wonder if it's really him.